Welcome back into Gray Television's Media Day Craze. Bailey Burmaster, and I'm now joined by Gary Stoken, the president of the Peach Bowl. Gary, thanks for joining us and being here in Dallas, D-Town for SEC Media Days.
Well, I tell you, this is when college football season starts. When you come to SEC Media Days, you know it's right around the corner. And we're so blessed to have just a tremendous Aflac kickoff game this year with number 1 Georgia against number 15, and some people have said number 9 Clemson start the season, and then to have a CFP playoff game, the SEC championship, and the national championship game. 4 games with all teams ranked. The lowest team ranked would be 15 in all those cases. So great way to start the college football season, great way to end it in the capital of college football, Atlanta, Georgia. It
is absolutely insane. The matchups, I love how far out they are, but then they come around and they're still as great as ever. What do you expect from this Clemson-Georgia game to come in the Aflac Kickoff Bowl?
You know, going through Radio Row here at SEC, it's kind of interesting, the talks. You know, when you look at, both Clemson and Georgia, there are unlike a lot of programs in the country right now, which mainly are developed through transfer portal. Both Georgia and Clemson have made high school recruiting and development of their players cornerstones of their teams, and both have been successful. 4 out of the last 8 national championships are Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart teams. So great success by great coaches. We could set a record in Mercedes-Benz Stadium with the turnout we're going to have.
Do you anticipate that, just with, the fan bases at Clemson and Georgia Pack obviously being the local team?
So many alumni in Atlanta, easy drive, and both teams are fired up for the beginning of the season. So it's a great way to kick off the college football season.
What is this year's kickoff for a cause?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah.
We were founded in 1968 as the first bowl for charity. So we've kept that a big part of our mission. We're the number 1 charitable bowl game in the country. We've given $63 million to charity since 2002. This year, we hope to raise somewhere $200,000, $300,000 to give back to Aflac Cancer and Blood Disorder Center at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. We've given $22 million over the last 5 years. Aflac's given $167 million to create the Aflac Cancer and Blood Disorder Center. We, through Peach Bowl Inc., now have 15 trials in 5 states in 4 different hospitals, 4 hospitals in 5 different states, finding cures and trials to eradicate childhood cancer, and that's our ultimate goal. Use college football for the greater good.
And that's amazing, and it's definitely the right place to do it in SEC country. What does the future look like for Aflac kickoff games with SEC connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. Next year we have 2 games. So we'll have Tennessee, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech, South Carolina. So we're set there. We're negotiating right now for 25. 26 and going forward, we're negotiating with CFP, hopefully to stay a part of the new playoff with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
Yep.
But from a kickoff game standpoint, we're waiting to see if the SEC is going to go to 9 games, which they could potentially do in conference play in 2026. That would shrink the inventory available for neutral site games. So we just have to wait and see past 25, 26.
How much does all this college football realignment really, if it even does, influence the bowl games, so to speak, and at the end of the year, especially with the 12-team playoff coming into play? Greg Sankey was actually pressed on it today about, 16 teams is today and tomorrow, but is that to tomorrow, or what's to come, because the college football landscape is changing so much? How much do you anticipate, the bowl games to change in the future with how much is?
Yeah, we'll learn a lot over these next 2 years. We're still in the last 2 years of our 12-year contract. So this year we'll host a quarterfinal, which means the top 4 conference champs will get byes. More than likely, we're probably going to get the ACC champ, but we'll learn a lot. Next year, the last year of the contract, we'll host the semifinal game, and then the new contracts will start in 26. Whether the commissioners and the presidents decide to move past 12 teams, remains to be seen.
As a football fan, are you a fan of the 12-team playoff? Do you like that it expanded, or would you rather kept it 4?
I think what college football will go through, being the number 2 sport in America, will be an elevated growth because of the 12-team playoff. And the reason I say that is you have more TV networks now broadcasting the game. You have NBC, ABC, ESPN, CBS, and Fox, and some streaming all invested in college football. That's only going to raise the number of games and the number of people that watch. With a 12-team playoff, you're going to have more teams still with an opportunity to play in a playoff through October and November. Whereas with a 14 playoff, if you lost a game in September, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So we could see teams with 2, maybe even 3 losses playing this 12-team playoff. So I think you'll see higher viewership on TV because more networks are showing it. I think you'll see more attendance because there's going to be more teams in the hunt longer. And that'll only elevate college football, which is now the second most favorite sport in this country, only behind the NFL.
And going off of that, especially being based in Atlanta, what can you say about Atlanta being this almost epicenter for college football? I mean, it helps the Georgia Bulldogs are in Athens, but the Benz repeatedly is hosting SEC championships and big games and AFLOC kickoff games.
It was one of the strategies when I took the job in '98 that we wanted to make Atlanta the capital of college football. We went out and got the College Football Hall of Fame and moved it to Atlanta from South Bend. We created the kickoff game format to start the season in Atlanta with a mega event like Georgia and Clemson. Mm-hmm. We helped bring the SEC championship game after its first 2 years in Birmingham. The Peach Bowl helped bring it to Atlanta and sold tickets for them. So all this has been the culmination of a strategy because we're inherently in a college football hotbed with most of the alumni bases of ACC and SEC schools live in Metro Atlanta. It's an easy drive for the SEC and ACC schools. So we're just inherently built that way. So we took all those ingredients, put them together, and I think that's one of the reasons why the CFP commissioners and presidents gave us the opportunity to join the CFP in 2015.
What do you make that Atlanta will be the first city to host a college football national championship for the second time?
And I think that's part of it, right?
Yeah.
I think they had great success in 18. It was a great game, but everything else went well because Atlanta's just built to host mega events. You're going to see next year the Major League Baseball All-Star Games in Atlanta. The next year the World Cup's in Atlanta. We'll get a Super Bowl probably in 29 or 30. Mm-hmm. We'll get the NCAA Final Four coming back. So, we're just blessed to have 16,000 hotel rooms downtown, all within walking proximity of the great facilities like Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Mm-hmm. A corporate community as well as a government community that get it, that get sports, they're willing to support it, as well as work together to make big events come off most effectively. So we're very blessed in Atlanta, and we're happy and proud to be a part of it and happy to create events like the AFLOC kickoff game, be a part of the playoff going forward, and be a part of the college football landscape.
Yeah, well, sports are never slowing down in Atlanta, and college football will continue to keep being better and better. What do you expect from the matchup of that Clemson-Georgia game?
Well, 2 interesting teams. Georgia obviously is coming back with a lot of people, both offensively and defensively, even though they had a lot of kids drafted. Clemson's defense is going to be one of the top defenses in the country. I think the key is going to be Klubnik, the quarterback at Clemson. Yeah. Will he step up? He's had 1 year under his belt now. He's a 5-star high school quarterback. Can he take Clemson to the next level against the top-ranked team in the country in Georgia? Sellout game, raising a lot of money for charity. So it's just we're very, very blessed to be a part of it, and we can't wait. We're ready for it tomorrow.
I'm worried because, after Georgia dropped that SEC championship game to Alabama and, ultimately missed out on the Final Four, I look at the Georgia Bulldogs and I'm going, they're going to come with some serious vengeance this season.
Well, their goal is to play 4 games in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The first game in the AFLOC kickoff game, the SEC championship, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl quarterfinal, and then the national championship game.
Can you imagine 4 games in Atlanta, your city. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Georgia. They do some crazy things that go down in the history books. I don't believe it would be any different this season much there.
They can make it happen.
They definitely can. All right, Gary Stokin, thank you for joining us to talk about.
Great to be with you.
Oh, we definitely enjoy it. We'll let you go down on Radio Row and meet with all the people. We're going to keep pushing here on Media Day Craze for Gray Television. Stick with us. We will be back with a lot more coming up. We're going to talk about the other teams in the market that we can talk about. Obviously, you had South Carolina take the podium, Brian Kelly. So we will hopefully have more for you just around the corner. Stick with us. Welcome back to Gray Television's Media Day Craze. Bailey Burmaster, Rick Henry, and Doc Holliday join me. We're going to ride you out here all the way to the end of this stream, and we're going to talk about everything SEC. Let's start with the new look of this conference. Obviously, the Blue Bloods from the Big 12, Oklahoma, Texas join. What do you make of the SEC now that there are no more divisions and you have teams that are powerhouses like Oklahoma and Texas joining?
Well, like I tell people, with Oklahoma and Texas coming, there's no doubt the SEC is the strongest, baddest conference in the land. And I was talking to someone yesterday who covers Texas. You know, he says the fans, they're all excited. I said the best advice I can give you is bring it every week. Because if you don't bring your A game in this conference, you're going to get beat.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to it because every week you're going to have blockbuster matchups.
Yeah.
And that same thing I said, you got a big boy conference. SEC was already a big boy conference. Then you add two programs, Texas and Oklahoma. They've been big boys for a long time. So now you can't take any weeks off in the SEC. You really couldn't take any off anyway. But now you got Texas and Oklahoma coming in, and now no division, so it's the top two teams make it to the SEC championship game. So, hey, what can you say about that, man? You got to be on your P's and Q's from day one.
So maybe I'll be the negative Nancy of the group because I'm a Big 12 baby. Played soccer at Oklahoma State, okay? So I'm familiar with OU and Texas. And every year, and you probably know this paying attention to football, every year it's like, Texas is back. They're going to make a splash, and then they don't. Now, last year was an exception. I think we would all agree, right? And OU has always been the dominant powerhouse of the Big 12. But it's different. Things are different. Brent Venables still kind of getting his footing a little bit with OU. Texas, Steve Sarkisian has really right the ship. Quinn Ewers really helping everything there. But do you think both of those programs are able to find success in this first year in the SEC? Or do we think there's going to be a little bit of growing pains?
Well, it depends. What will you define as success in the SEC for those two teams? Is success contending for the conference championship, making the playoffs, or maybe, having to settle for maybe 8-4, 9-3 in the regular season? So I think success for them would be competitive. Don't come in here and you have some games where, it's a 30 or 40-point loss. You don't want that. You want to be competitive and be able to put a scare, hold your own against teams, like Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss. So I think if they come in and they show, hey, we belong, we're not going to get pushed around, we're going to put a scare into some people and say, hey, look out, maybe not this year, give us a year or two, and we're going to be right up there, fighting to be the king of the hill in the SEC.
Yeah, and you make a good point, Rick, because what are the expectations? How do you determine what success is? Your Texas and Oklahoma, it's not like you're two scrubs coming into this conference.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're not going to be happy with 8 wins.
I mean, the fan base probably won't be happy with 8 wins.
I don't think an athletic director would be, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, if you're Texas, Oklahoma, you're like, hold on. I understand, and we understand what the SEC is, but you all have to understand who we are and what we are as well. Now, if you're Texas, you're Oklahoma, we understand how they've been playing, but you have the SEC teams, they're top heavy, and you should be able to compete in the bottom half, but if you're Texas and Oklahoma, you do not want to be in the bottom half of the SEC, especially in your first season.
Another massive storyline of this SEC Media Days is Nick Saban. Nick Saban has hung up his whistle, taken a mic. He's one of us now. Who would have ever thought, But he's not coaching in the SEC and SEC Media Days for the first time since 2006. What do you believe Saban's impact now can be on the SEC as a voice, as someone who is no longer in it but has been a part of it?
Well, whenever Nick Saban opens his mouth, people listen. Yeah. They pay attention. So whatever causes that he wants to put out there and support or not support, people are going to pay attention. But given his longtime history in the SEC, he's going to support things that are going to be in the best interest of the SEC, not necessarily the rest of college football. So I think it'll be kind of interesting to see just
what he hangs his hat on.
Yeah, just how much he's out there and how active he is. So
He's the godfather. He's the godfather of Alabama football. He's the godfather of SEC. You know, once Nick Saban opens his mouth, everyone listens. So he probably, might need to sign a contract with the SEC to be their PR person because he's on ESPN. And he's going to speak everything good, SEC, everything good, Alabama. But he deserves the right to, when he opens his mouth and he talks, you all listen to what he has to say. When I heard him say they asked him for a credential earlier today, that was hard for me to believe, man. It's hard for me to believe they asked.
No.
Come on, Nick Saban,
that was a bad joke.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it had to be.
It had to be a bad joke because I think anyone that sees Saban, yes, sir, wherever you want, you just go. You just go wherever you want. But it's funny because you said hang his hat on stuff, and when he talks, people are going to listen. I think a lot of it is going to be the discussion around recruiting calendar and NIL and how that's been affecting the game. It's still very early in this process, but what do you make of the state of college football now with players being able to capitalize on this stuff?
Well, I think it's long overdue. I thought it was just a sin when you look at how much money college football brings in, not only for the schools and the coaches with their high salaries, but the whole economy of the towns. I know, like in Columbia, South Carolina, when the Gamecocks are playing, hotels are full, gas stations, restaurants, malls. Everyone is making money except the people who really make it possible, the players. Yeah. So NIL isn't going away. Of course, there need to be some modifications because, some people are, anytime big money is involved, some people will try to bend the rules a little bit. So you have to have some well-defined rules that everyone is going to be playing by those same rules. But of course, we got some schools out there that have a little more money than everyone else.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Well, it is what it is. It's business. It's long overdue. You're talking to somebody who played college football, and I used to watch when we used to try to wait for our little $30 a month check because they didn't feed us on Sundays. So now to see these young men and young women, but young men, since we speak in football, actually getting paid for their talents because you make so much. These colleges they're signing billion-dollar contracts. So you got to pay these young men who are putting their lives on the line out there and infusing a lot of money into the university.
But Doc, how much do you think it's changed the camaraderie in a locker room because guess what? Carson Beck's driving a Lambo. You could be a walk-on or third-string scrub at safety, and you're probably whipping a Corolla.
Well,
the dynamic changes.
Yeah, I tell you this, Bailey. If you're a walk-on, you really don't have much to say anyway. That's just me.
I was a walk-on, and I was full ride by my senior year. So watch your mouth.
No. I have a lot of respect for walk-on football players because I used to look at them and be like, yeah, you all doing two-a-days just like us. But you don't reap any other benefits. But you already had a separation because let's be honest, you had cats getting paid anyway.
Well, let's be real. If you have
not in Memphis, not in Memphis. Not in Memphis. Not in Memphis. Okay.
If you have $100 price tag, you're worth your price tag, right?
Yeah, you are.
Scholarship.
Yeah.
They're not giving you 100% scholarship for you to ride the pine.
No,
it's not happening.
No, that's just how it goes. And you've always had that, but you're gonna always have jealousy. You're gonna always have envy. You're gonna always have that because you have people with alpha mentalities. And I want to be the best player. I want the most playing time, and I want to get paid more. So you have cats talking. I'm gonna get rid of $2 million. $2 million.
Yeah.
1.5.
Hey, listen to the man, okay? Because he's been in those locker rooms.
Yes.
He's been on that stage. And there's always going to be jealousy because, hey, let's face it, the stars, the better players, they're going to get the most shine. And, back in the day, they got the most benefits.
But I think the crazy thing now is loyalty dead in college football? Before, because you'll know this, like old school was like, you ride it out. I'm gonna stick with this team no matter what. And now it's like, we're losing, and they're offering me more money. I mean, I think of like Caleb Downs going from Alabama to Ohio State, and that NIL deal I'm sure was a big reason why, and it's an easy recruiting tactic. Now I do think there's a middle ground in the sense of maybe the players who aren't these big names that can get those type of deals, but then they say, okay, we have a solid team, and if we all stay and we stay in that unison and we decide to ride this, who knows what this could be. but I just feel like that's not the case anymore.
I'll let you have it, Rick, then because I definitely have something to say.
Yeah. Well, as far as like loyalty, you look at the coaches. When they get a better opportunity, sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, look, we had somebody just play for a national championship, and they jumped ship. Okay, and what are the players thinking like, oh man, we came this close, and see you later, coach.
Yeah.
So I like why shouldn't the players also, have the same opportunity?
Yeah.
And I put it this way: as far as players are concerned, when you're close to someone in the locker room, especially now. Now we do have a text group for the Memphis Tigers. Now, cats who transfer it out, they're not allowed on the text. Like, no, you didn't finish. You didn't finish here. But I think now, when you have teammates that you went to battle with, you understand the business of it, man. If you can go get a meal, man, I want you to go get your meal.
Go get your bag.
Go get your bag, man, because we understand that. But now, if you're leaving because you're afraid to compete, we understand the difference between that.
Yeah.
So you're just scared to compete.
Yeah.
So now, if you're afraid to compete, no respect for you. But if you're going to get that, man, go get the money. Go get what you
do you think that? And do you think with that the culture's different? I feel like maybe even 10 years ago, when people didn't want to compete, you would sit there and go, "Well, you're soft." Like step up to the challenge. In today's world, it's like do you feel like locker rooms are holding people as accountable because of how that plays into things?
Well, it depends on the leadership. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, there's no place for softness in football, right?
No, there's not at all. Not at all.
No, but there is.
Okay, all right.
I mean, okay, tell me I'm wrong. Hear me out. Hear me out. Even at the NFL level, there's guys who walk into that locker room just to get a paycheck because it's a big paycheck. Tell me I'm wrong. That's soft to me.
Okay, well,
but once they bust you in your face, that's softness.
Hey, they're not going to get not going to get that paycheck if they go out on the field and they're soft. Yeah. They've got to be tough. I mean, there are plenty of guys. I talk to college guys who are not football fans, right? Yeah. If you start talking to them about the history of football and NFL, and they go, well, I didn't watch a lot of football growing up. And, not just football players, but basketball players. Some of them play because they're good at it. They can get a scholarship, and they can get paid. But that's not being soft, because you still got to be hard.
No, and I guess I'm talking about that's the difference between star players and role players. And you have to have role players on every team. Not everyone's the superstar.
No,
and that's the reality of college football, though. If you're not the star player, you're not necessarily reaping these benefits we even talk about on a daily basis.
Well, that's true, and I get where you're coming from, but because you're like it's emotionally, mentally soft. You're just out there.
Yes,
just
not like physically.
I know exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but like Rick said, you do have a lot of players. They're only playing the sport because they're good at it. They're not academics of the sport. They don't study it. They don't care about any of that. They just can go out there and play. They don't even love it. Yeah. They just have the ability to go play and perform and to get paid. So I get what you're saying, but you have a lot of players like that, but that's just the reality of the situation. Everybody, they're not football historians. It's just like, man, I can ball out. I'm gonna go ball out, man. Let me get paid. Let me get this, and let me get up out of here.
So let me take this another way too. Student athlete. Do we even care about the student anymore? I mean, think about it.
Yeah, you've got to care about the, about the student, because guys have to be smart to realize that, hey, may not make it in the NFL, and if you make it in the NFL, you've got to be smart enough to keep your money. So yeah,
but do you? Let me put it this way: when I was at OSU as a freshman, one of the classes we had was student athlete orientation. They taught us how to write checks. They taught us all this financial aspect. That class no longer exists, okay? And I don't know how many other universities would offer that. But are kids really, teachers, universities really taking the time to hone in and give these kids the resources they need to be successful? So if they do get any money and they can't play professionally, they are set up. I don't know if that's – I have not heard – and we are in this industry of universities that are doing that. I have not.
Well,
and I'm not saying it doesn't exist.
Yeah, at the University of South Carolina, I hear coaches all the time. I mean, like Don Staley, Shane Beamer, Lamont Parrish, the basketball coach, is getting ready for his third season now, and Frank Martin, the previous coach, they always talk about not only preparing these kids for the next game, the next practice, but life, preparing young men to be good husbands, good fathers, to be able to provide for the family. So, yeah, there may be some coaches out there. The only thing they care
Doing
about
the right thing?
is what do you bring to the field? What do you bring to the court? But, again, in the recruiting process, and parents have to be in tune with this, you got to know that they're going to take care of their child. And that's one thing that Don Staley's, and I've heard parents say that about Don Staley. She said, I will take care of your child.
Well, and she had that great quote at the ESPYs, too, where she basically was like, how can I ask them to use their voice when I'm only willing to whisper? And I really loved that because it was like, let me be the example for them. And that's just what I hope as we still try and figure out and regulate all this NIL stuff, that we have enough coaches in place that are willing to see just past the money and the winning that needs to happen, which is crucial. Don't get it twisted. At the end of the day, nothing happens if you're not winning. But I also think it's a beautiful thing when you're able to match that with the success on the field with off the field as well.
And it's important, that's why it's extremely important to get to know the coaches and the coaching staff and the athletic administration of the university that you're going to. Because I know it was Memphis State at the time, it's University of Memphis. Now, even now, Penny Hardaway, Ryan Silverfield, University of Memphis, they bring speakers in. Not only do they have class, but they bring speakers in, like during camp, to talk to these young men. And I know Penny brings people in to talk to them all the time about financial literacy, because that's something that, we weren't really taught. But financial literacy, like you said, checking accounts, working on your credit and all those things, and understanding the value of money and building relationships. So it all depends on the coaches and the athletic administration who place emphasis on the student part of it, because a lot of coaches, they couldn't care less about the student part. It's just about, what can you do for me?
I got to recruit.
You got to go to class. Don't forget class. I need you in film sessions.
You got to be self-sufficient.
Exactly. You have to. You have to.
Like at South Carolina, every year they have something they call like the senior seminar, where they bring the senior student athletes in, and they bring different people from the community to talk about careers. And I've been fortunate enough, they've invited me to just about every one they've had. And it's really great to see that. They try to team people up with their interests, so you can give them some real world
experience and advice.
And, you see the kids, they sit there and they soak it up, and then see some of them follow up. Like one of the young ladies I talked with, one of those seminars, and I also went to their ring ceremony the day of graduation. And she comes up to me and she goes, hey, I'm starting work with you on Monday as a producer. And, fresh out of USC.
Yeah.
And I'm going, okay. And it was about a month or two after she started. We were in the pandemic, so it's just like working from home. But she turned out to be one of our best producers.
That's amazing.
And I was sad when she left.
That's amazing.
So, and there are plenty of stories like that. But again, the school, they have to have the right focus, parents, and the students themselves.
It was a big obligation. Commissioner Greg Sankey talked earlier today, and he talked about, he has a student-athlete council. He talks to these athletes about what are their biggest concerns. And they said that every state has different rules for NIL, which rightfully so, because you're not on an even playing field. So they want that even playing field, same standards. Most of the athletes actually vocalized that they did not want to be deemed employees of the university, which I agree. I wouldn't either. You want to be paid for your name, image, and likeness, but you don't really necessarily want to wear that hat. And then the other one was they just want to continue to have great competition, which is all circulating around just the college football landscape that is ever changing. What do you guys make of? I mean, are we headed to just a super conference and calling it a day?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been thinking about this. Everyone's going, and it's getting real crazy.
It is.
I mean, when you've got Stanford and Cal in the Atlantic Coast Conference, I'm like, they can't call themselves Atlantic Coast Conference. You're the coast-to-coast conference.
Yeah.
So I think what you're going to have 4 super divisions, okay? And, you're going to have all your big boys together, and, the SEC will go away, the ACC, the Big 12, and it'll be called something else.
Yep.
And I don't know. We may see a whole lot of other changes on hey, from year to year, you have to reach a certain standard or we're going to kick you out
You're
to
booted.
the lower division until you can play your way back in.
Well, you know what? The NCAA may not want to hear this, but I said it years ago, especially now you bringing in Texas and Oklahoma. SEC, especially with football concerned, they can really be their standalone right now and be like, you know what, we're going to have a championship. That's going to be the national championship. We the big dogs in college football. Now what? You know what kind of NCAA, what really can they say? Because that is what it is.
Not to say the quiet part out loud, but is the NCAA even really relevant?
Negative. I honestly, I
They're
say
gonna
negative.
come for me, but I don't think they are either.
No, because they've been too quiet for too long and just kind of waiting for things to play, play their way out. And they've just been looking, and it's like, okay, we've waited too long. We need to say something, but it's too late. You've lost, a lot of people have lost respect. Like we're saying, when Nick Saban talks, they listen. When the NCAA talks, people may yawn and look the other way.
And that's a great point, because if the NCAA, let's say it was a person, and they walked in here right now, we'd be like, hey, a couple of years, we'd be like, hey, NCAA. Yeah. Now you'd be like, who?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, SEC? How you doing? How you doing, How you doing, Mr. SEC? How you doing?
Yeah.
It is. It's the reality of the situation, man. They've lost a lot of credibility and respect.
I wrote down some of the things Sankey said that I thought were really interesting. He kind of started his opening statement with, it's time to update the expectation. Do you think, with how things are going for the SEC right now, 16 teams, which he said 16 teams today, 16 teams tomorrow, and he was pressed multiple, 3 questions in a row of does that mean you guys could expand? And he was like, I've made it clear, I'm talking about 16 teams today and 16, very politically correct answer. Do you think the SEC could expand more?
Certainly.
Within the next 2 years?
Okay, well, say 2 years, 3 years ago, and somebody would have come to you and say, hey, you know what? Texas and Oklahoma may be going to the SEC. California and Stanford to the ACC. UCLA, Southern Cal, Oregon off to the Big Ten. What would you have said? Okay, what kind of stuff are you on?
Yeah.
So,
but now it's more likely than not.
Yeah. I think especially, too, if the revenue keeps going up.
Yeah.
Here's my question before we head to break, and then we'll come back and talk about these teams. When you look at these big conferences where they have teams all over the place, Stanford, ACC, that is a lot for athletes. That's a lot of travel. That's a lot. Do you think conferences take that into consideration at all, and or should they?
Oh. Well, I hope they take it into consideration, but at the end of the day, because, okay, I was thinking about this. Okay, you take your normal SEC team going on the road like South Carolina. Okay, you travel on Friday.
Yes.
You get there, get settled into the hotel, maybe have a walkthrough, whatever. And then Saturday, you play the game. Immediately after the game, boom, get on the charter and go back. Yep. Okay, now let's say a team from the ACC, let's just say North Carolina, going out to Stanford.
Right.
Do you wait until Friday to go, and then you got the whole thing
with
about
the time change,
jet lag, and everything, and then
you battle what the NFL
come
does.
Back, and the poor kid, they get back late, and they've got in 6 hours they've got a class,
a test.
Okay, so if they really thought a whole lot about the kids and their schoolwork, they probably go, this is crazy. Then somebody goes, hey, let's crunch these numbers. We'll figure it out.
And that's why I said you talk about it. You want to hey, let's keep it reasonably. We don't want to put too much on them. Then they'd be like, okay,
here's a check.
What's that number? We'll figure it out. It's okay. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it.
It's wild. It's truly wild because traveling is a lot. You guys, I'm sure, travel a ton for work, and you work time differences. I mean, for them too, you have school, you have classes, you have walkthroughs. It's not easy. And, these are college kids. They do have other extracurricular activities we won't discuss. But like in the NFL, it's like, do we get there early and then you risk players going out?
Well, Bailey, you know what? I think what we are with college athletics now, which is good for them, even though you're traveling right now. Be like, we got class. What time class? Hey, dog, log me in. Call, hey, log me in the class. You somewhere, you somewhere at a restaurant. Hey, log me in, log me. Here go my login credentials. So they can log in from anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be in front of the computer. I'm just being honest about it.
No, and usually, I don't know, but when we would go to like tournaments and stuff for Big 12, they would send an academic facilitator, and we would have a study room, and it was like they would watch you take tests and whatnot.
Interesting.
So, but that's women's soccer. We're not football. We chartered once my entire 4 years.
Oh, okay.
So very different aspects.
Well, I know they do have, they have tutors that go on the road trips. You know, they'll have study hall out on the road. Now, when the two of you were in college, did they have people who would go around and check the attendance rolls to make sure you were in class?
Yes.
Yes, we used to have to get something signed to let you know you were in class, and I got in trouble for that quite often because sometimes I'm sleeping.
He was not going to class.
Coach, I'm sleeping, Coach.
I would just become friends with them. I'd come once, give them a chicken biscuit, and just say, remember that.
Well, I know at USC, South Carolina, they would have someone who would
Attendance
physically
checkers.
go to the class, look, and go, okay. And especially with football, if you're not there, you're going to be running the stadium steps.
Yeah.
I've run many stadiums in my life, and it is not fun. It is not fun. Okay, and on that, we'll take a little break, and when we come back, we will dissect this SEC for the teams that we think might be the top dogs. Stick with us. Welcome back into your Media Day craze. Bailey Burmaster, Rick Henry, Doc Holliday. Let's talk about this conference. I'm going to read what the consensus, I looked at a lot of preseason polls of what they were. I'll read them off to you, and then we'll just run into it. So Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, Mizzou, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Auburn, Florida, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. Is Georgia the team to beat this season?
I'd have to say so. It's hard to go against them, you know, what they've been able to do the past 3 years. And I think if you're going to win the SEC, it's one way or the other. You got to go through Athens and the Georgia Bulldogs.
You have to. Georgia, Kirby Smart, trying to get his third national championship, in 4 years. Just look at the program he's built there. I mean, they're just playing some great football. I think the reason why they didn't win it last year because for some inexplicably they had trouble stopping the run. But they are the big dogs. They are the big boys on top right now, and everybody else has to look at Georgia and try to get through Georgia. So, yeah, they're definitely the favorite to me.
42-2 in the last 3 years. You know, I was not really on the Carson Beck train when they started the season. I wanted to see what he could actually do. Then he played Auburn, and I think he really showed that he could be consistent and sound and go and win them a game in crunch time if needed. I will ride the train this year. I do believe he is the best quarterback in college football. Agree or disagree?
Well, you know what? I really want to see. The thing, when I'm looking at Carson Beck and I see what he, you know, all the yards he threw for and the touchdowns, how can you not say he's not, because he's playing probably the best, he's playing for probably the best team in college football, but it's easy when you have just dogs in every position around you. You mean offensive line.
Everything's easier.
Everything is easier. Tight end, running back, receivers. So not taking anything from Carson, but it's hard for me to put that jacket on him right now because you're surrounded by 10-star athletes, not 5 stars, 10 stars. So, but you can't take anything from what he's accomplished so far and his skill set.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up with what Doc just said about having a star-studded roster. When South Carolina joined the SEC in 1992, they had been an independent. And they'd been an okay program. As a matter of fact, they had their first 10-win season in 1984, and they joined the SEC in 1992. When they joined the SEC, I go, oh my goodness! Right away, I could go, man, they've got so many more good players. And when I look at teams that could make a big run in the SEC, it's like, what is the depth they have with good players? Everyone's got good players, but when your number one guy goes out, can the backup give you winning football? If they can't give you winning football, then
you're only as strong as your weakest link.
That's a step down. And that's been one of the problems with South Carolina over the years. When they're really good, they are loaded. Like in 2011 when they went down to Georgia, and, man, that defense, you had Clowney, you had Stephon Gilmore. They had NFL players just about the entire first-string unit. And when Will Muschamp came and one of the guys from that team had a celebrity basketball tournament, and a lot of the guys from that 2011 team came, and Muschamp came over to me and said, I see why they were 11-2 3 straight years. There's a lot of talent out there. And now when, you know, you're hardly getting people drafted, you're going to struggle in the SEC.
Bailey, you know what Rick is doing. Let's see. They're literally buried. He's trying to knock some of that dirt off South Carolina.
At 13.
They're buried down there. They're buried down there. They're buried down there.
Hey, Shane Beamer addressed that. He goes, yeah, you know, I know people are going to, you know, pick us like 13, 14.
Listen, give him his time because we're probably not going to make it to anyone below 10.
I know. That's why I totally understand what he's doing.
All right, so spot number 2, we have Texas. Texas is over Alabama at 3. I find that a little disrespectful to Alabama.
Yeah, but again, people are going, well, you know, they don't have Nick Saban. They had some people transfer out. And so everyone wants to see, okay, what is the post-Nick Saban era going to look for the Crimson Tide?
They still have the foundation, though, is what I'm getting at. And Kalen DeBoer isn't just some random coach they picked up. He's a very signified coach that has the wins and has put the structure in place at Washington, and now is just trying to keep the train moving at Bama.
Yeah, if I'm Texas, I wouldn't want to be picked above Alabama in this first year.
Yeah,
Put us underneath Alabama.
But you see, I mean, you can understand what it is. Look at the season Texas is coming
Right.
off of. I mean, come on, they were big dogs as well, and you know, I think it would be disrespectful to Texas to put Alabama over top of them because they're like, hold on, because everybody attributes Alabama's success to Nick Saban. Even though he had 10 stars every year, you know, he's still a great coach, but you still have to get those 10 stars able to play, and he was able to motivate them and get them to play like that. But Texas, seeing what they have and seeing all the football talent in Texas and what they got going on, I can understand
Show me
that.
you can do it in the SEC for a second year. And, like, you know, you played really well last year. Show me you can do it a second year in the SEC, and maybe I'll actually believe Texas is back. That's what
We're
I'm
going to
getting
find out.
Yeah, quick fast.
Let's talk about the fourth team, Ole Miss. I find them absolutely fascinating. Maybe because Lane Kiffin is one of the more charismatic coaches in college football, period. But he's been labeled the portal king of sorts because he got 65 transfer portal kids over the last 3 years. And he really put the Rebels on the map last year. What do you expect from this Rebels team in 2024?
Well, I expect a lot more of what they gave us last year. I mean, it's amazing the rich history that Ole Miss football has, and that's their first time winning 11 games was last season, and they played Penn State in the Peach Bowl and just beat the brakes off of them. Then you look at the players he has back with Jackson Dart, almost 3,400 yards, 23 touchdowns, just 5 picks, a school record low. And they only turned the ball over 7 times, I think, last year. So you got him coming back. You got Trey Harris. I said, you know, Quinshawn Judkins is gone, but they're gonna be riding the Bentley because you got Ulysses Bentley the fourth toting the pill back there, and you got a defense that should be a lot better. So. You know, Lane Kiffin, he's a talker. He's a smooth talker. He may be able to recruit him from WIS.
We call him yappers these days.
That's how good he is, man.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss, they've been that train coming down the tracks for the past few years. Yeah. And, you know, the whistle is getting louder. They're blowing off more steam. And he is the king of the transfer portal. I mean, he took one of South Carolina's best receivers, Juice Wells.
I have a strong feeling this Rebel team is definitely going to be in that 12-team playoff.
Indeed. I mean, you look at some of the people he added, especially on defense. You get the D-tackle from Texas A&M, Walter Nolan. Come on, man, 6'4", 290. I mean, you got a big dog in there. You got a run stopper. So their defense for Ole Miss, it kind of sucked last year. Let's be honest. So now they should be a whole lot better.
Also, they have a cupcake schedule. Have you guys looked at their schedule? Furman, Middle Tennessee, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, at South Carolina, at LSU.
Oh, cupcakes.
Oklahoma.
Why you doing like that?
I mean, the 14 for a reason.
Oh, my God.
I'm just stating the facts.
Hey.
The facts are the facts.
Could have waited until.
At least, I know, man.
She could have done that tomorrow.
In the first segment.
Yeah.
In the first segment.
No, it better be nice. I need him to come back on tomorrow.
Are the Gamecocks still anywhere?
Gosh, man.
Shane.
At Arkansas, Georgia, at Florida, at Mississippi State. So there's some gauntlet schedules. This is by far one of the easier schedules, and it's Ole Miss. So if they can play like they did last year, they should be a shoo-in for that 12-team playoff.
Oh, yeah, they got to take advantage of it.
You have to. I mean, if there's a such thing as having a cupcake schedule in the SEC, Bailey, you really just read one
I
off.
really thought.
You
No,
really just read one out.
I
Correct,
give SEC flowers, but that's
yeah.
Come on. Let's talk about LSU. I find them really fascinating, obviously trying to turn the tide from Jaden Daniels and his Heisman season, and now they have Nussmeier. What do you guys expect from LSU after they were arguably one of the most efficient offenses in the country?
Well, you know what? You can't lose, Heisman Trophy. When you lose a quarterback, you're trying to replace something or someone like that.
But they had Joe Burrow.
You're right.
Many more years
That's
ago?
exactly.
It's kinda crazy.
But how many times do you hit like that?
hear
You understand? I mean, you can only hit oil in one spot. 2 or 3 times, I think. I'm not an oilsman, but oil
We've
man.
been in Texas. We should be able to find someone.
But you with the plethora of talent in Louisiana and what they have to pull from, you can never count LSU out, especially with all the players that want to go play there. And like I said, you can never count them out for anything. So you always expect them to replace, but we have to go back to what are the expectations for what are the expectations now for LSU?
Yeah, well, you mentioned, I guess, another generational talent at quarterback. Well, I just looked back at Clemson a couple of years ago. When they had Deshaun Watson, then here comes Trevor Lawrence. Each one of them won a national championship, and both of them, they were surrounded by mega talent. So if you've got all that going for you, then it's like, hey, let's get something done.
We only have so much time left. Very quickly, give me who wins the SEC championship and your dark horse.
I'll let you go first, Rick. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll go with Georgia winning the SEC championship, and the dark horse, I'll go with Missouri.
Oh, that's great. 11-2 season last. Yeah.
They beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
That's who I was going to say. I mean, that's.
Oh.
But hey, great minds think.
Well, I'm
alike.
going with Georgia. My dark horse is not South Carolina. You can wrap it up.
Right. Thank you. That does it for your Media Day craze.
Oh, man.
Join us throughout the rest of the week. Have a good day.